The opposition People's National Party is calling for development of an educational policy for all students in Jamaica. People's National Party's spokesperson on education and training, Angela Burke, is calling for the Ministry of Education to develop a policy that places greater emphasis on all students. According to the People's National Party, they are urging the government, as a result of a statement that came from the Minister of Education, advising schools to focus on students who are in preparation for exit exams at the grade 6, 11, and 12, along with grade 13 levels. Attention to all students is important because learning is cumulative, and the focus on only the exam grades now compromising the prospects of future exam grades. Giving adequate support to students to sit their final exams is necessary, but the piecemeal approach is being taken by the Ministry of Education is not sufficient and will do more harm than good to the remaining batches of students. The minister needs to articulate a more developmental strategy that considers the entire student population. Burke has mentioned that a systematic plan is needed that will consider the importance of in-person early childhood education, since socialization is critical to character building and developing the right approach to learning. She also emphasized the need for the prioritization of treatment in relation to the pandemic for teachers on an early basis. The increasing number of pandemic cases is quite worrisome. Therefore, the government is obliged to prioritize educators since they hold the development of our future in their hands. It was further mentioned by Angela Burke that at this point the government is focused on whether or not to resume face-to-face classes, but no thought is being given to more long-term arrangements, such as decisions around reconstituting the summer holidays to make up for lost learning. These are issues that the opposition has been urging the government to plan for since the inception of the pandemic. Most principals are in agreement to cut back the number of face-to-face classes, but they are concerned about children who could be left behind. Education Minister Favour Williams' new announcement that an immediate end to face-to-face classes for students in lower grades in primary and secondary schools has received support from various principals. Addressing a meeting, she said that effective immediately, only students who are to sit exit external exams are to be allowed in schools for face-to-face classes as the country continues to deal with the effects of the pandemic. For schools that are operating in the face-to-face mode, we have made an adjustment, and we have directed that those schools in the face-to-face mode only have students from grade 6, which is the exit for our primary schools, and students in grades 11, 12, and 13 in our secondary schools. All other students will stay at home and utilize the online learning platform or the audiovisual approach, which will be watching the lessons on television and listening to the lessons on radio. And we do have a national schedule published to inform all students and parents as to what these times for these lessons will be. The Education Ministry later clarified that this did not apply to private schools, whose administrators would make individual decisions. Parents are also questioning the reason for this differentiation between public and private schools. Is it that the pandemic will only affect students in public schools? What is good for one should be good for all, said one parent who has 2 children in the lower grades of a popular corporate area private school. When schools were closed last year, the ministry said it was for all schools, and when face-to-face resumed last November, the ministry spoke to all schools. So what is the difference at this time? Another parent has questioned the suddenness of the decision. It was mentioned that he had just resumed going into office now that his young youth was resuming face-to-face classes, and now he would have to suddenly resume working from home. What would have happened to cause this announcement today? The number of cases has been going up since last week, so why this announcement could not have been made on Friday. In justifying the decision, Fable Williams told the media that she communicated the change earlier during a joint meeting at the task force of the pandemic, along with principals of the approved schools. Our risk-based model that has guided us in our process continues to be used. We continue to input new data that we receive into the model, and we analyze the data as we go along. We cannot ignore the caution lights that we are seeing from this data, and so there has to be a discussion with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. There has been a discussion at the cabinet level, and so this morning we called together our major stakeholders in the sector to give them an update as to what we are seeing in our schools from a global perspective. She said that more than 400 schools have been approved for face-to-face classes so far, but only 300 actually opened their doors. According to Ms. Williams, the administrators of the schools are the ones who decide if they want to resume face-to-face classes, as they made the decision to close their doors based on the circumstances that they encounter. The Education Minister told the briefing that since the resumption of the face-to-face classes, 47 students have tested positive for the pandemic, while there have been 6 suspected cases. In addition, 23 members of staff at schools have tested positive for the pandemic, and 18 are suspected of having a similar issue. She mentioned that as of February 21, a total of 41 schools would have reported confirmed or suspected cases of the pandemic. In the meantime, some school leaders welcomed the announcement by the Education Minister. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about all the matters that have been discussed in this session. Angela Brown Burke is focusing on urging the government to work on developing a new policy that emphasizes and focuses on all students, while the minister is trying to put in place measures to curb the pandemic-related issues that have stemmed within schools, as they had chosen to resume face-to-face classes. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.